This season of Area Code Batavia is brought to you by Christine Clemens, a real estate broker with App Properties Christie's International Real Estate, one of Chicagoland's most trusted brokers, helping you buy, sell, and invest in real estate. For more information and to see how much your home is worth, text HOME to 630-797-8421 or go to christineclemens.com or click the link in the show notes. This episode of Area Code Batavia is brought to you by Bulldog Plumbing Incorporated. For more information or to schedule an appointment, visit their website in the show notes or give them a call at 630-313-9109.
Logan Street Baptist Church in Batavia is looked up as it's like a centerpiece. It got a historical marking out there.
Yeah.
And it's something that Batavia as a community pride themselves on. Well, we got a black church here that's been here 104 years.
Okay. Yeah.
We are really cosmopolitan. It's just the idea that we are the community that all communities want to be.
Hey everybody, you're listening to Area Code Batavia. I'm your host, Richard Clark. As you know, every week we share a list of recommended businesses that make Area Code Batavia possible. These are businesses that are more than just sponsors. They're invested in our community and share our vision for a vibrant, connected Batavia. They include Christine Clemens at Properties Christie's International Real Estate, Bulldog Plumbing, Bogie Bikes, Batavia Paranormal Investigation Squad, and Plimsoll Marketing Agency. You can find out more information in the show notes and let them know that you heard about them here. I've recorded 15 episodes of this show so far, and there's this recurring idea that pops up in most of them, that Batavians will welcome really anyone who proactively and intentionally looks to belong. It's this idea that belonging ultimately is up to us. And on the whole, I've seen this to be true. When I started this podcast, I was pretty nervous about whether it, and honestly, whether I would be accepted by the community. And I was, because in this town, people seem to embrace a good faith effort to contribute. But I'm also painfully aware that this hasn't always been the case. Like most of America, and honestly, like most Chicago suburbs, Batavia was a product of its time. And in the not so distant past, not everyone has had the opportunity to belong in Batavia. The racism present in the United States had a very real impact here, in this place. And that reality can still in some ways be felt today, in the racial makeup of our town, in the structure of our neighborhoods, and in the representation in our local government. So I wanted to know, what if you grew up knowing that belonging in certain places and in certain communities just wasn't possible? How would that change you? And what would you do for others around you in similar circumstances? And what kind of place would you build for yourself? One of those places was Logan Street Missionary Baptist Church. It was founded in 1921, both because of and in spite of these realities. And it's one of the longest standing historically black churches in Batavia. So you're about to hear a conversation with two longtime Batavians and members of Logan Street Missionary Baptist Church, Ruth and Edward Tousana.
I used to be Ruth Ann Buckner. That's what people would know me by the people that have been in town a long time. My parents, of course, came to Logan Street, and they brought me and my brother. Mm-hmm. And so when I was about 11 years old, I joined the church.
My name is Edward Tousana, and my relationship to the church is, number one, I was more or less married at this church before they actually built this. It was actually about 3 years after they constructed the new facility.
The second part.
The second part over here.
Yeah.
And I've been affiliated with the church ever since.
Yeah. Through the years, it's served as a place of refuge and community for a group of people who just didn't experience the same kind of belonging in Batavia as we might take for granted.
The only time that I haven't belonged or been here is when I went away to school, and then when I got married and we were living in the city.
But to really answer these questions, I wanted to talk to someone who lived with them for years. They were willing to share their experience growing up in Batavia before the Civil Rights Movement, about the ways they did and didn't experience belonging in Batavia growing up, and how things have changed and not changed in the recent past.
I'm a deacon in the church.
Okay.
And I'm involved with just about everything. And I'm more or less like the pastor's right-hand man.
Oh, nice,
so
yeah.
I'm very involved with the Sunday school and the finance and quite a few other things. Not only that, but the more or less the remodeling, maintenance, and everything else in the church. So I'm just like the ace in the hole. Yeah. That's more or less.
A floater kind of. Yeah. Tell me about this place, this space we're in, and what it means to you.
Well, this space right now, this isn't the original way this space was, but it's been redecorated in the last 10 years, maybe. I would say it's a little bit modern. It has the screens now where you can see.
Instead of those lights there, those LED lights, we had more of the like chandeliers hanging light fixtures.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the walls were brick in here.
Yeah.
All the wall
brick.
was natural brick.
Okay.
The black beams going up was natural wood beams, laminated beams. Where you can see the baptismal pool.
Okay.
Because behind that is a baptismal pool that it had. Quite a bit has changed here. And then plus that we had pews with red cushioned seats in them and everything. So, well, number one, to me, it means quite a bit because I was the more or less church representative when they built this part of the facility. Not only I work with the architect, but I work with the general contractor.
Yeah.
And deciding colors, tones, everything. Some aspects of the design I made changes in myself by putting a restroom in the pastor's study and also the skylight itself. I designed the mock beams and drop ceiling, the acoustic tile ceiling over in the older part. That was under Pastor Reverend Truman Hazel. So I've been deeply involved with the church in quite a bit of areas of the church.
Yeah. How long have you been a part of it again?
Oh, gosh. I say since 1962 or 64.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old were you when you joined this church?
Gosh, I don't forget. I got to start doing the math and everything. You know, so.
Wait, you were a little kid?
No, I wasn't a little kid. No, I was
After we
adult.
got married.
After I got married.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
Wow.
And then I got really involved in the church here.
Yeah. Okay. Can you describe the space and what it means to you?
Well, especially in the 40s, during the war years, and just being in Batavia, the church was the epicenter for all Black people because we couldn't go to restaurants. We couldn't go to hotels. We couldn't. There's so many places that we were prohibited from going to that the church was where
activities.
Yeah, it was our activities. It was
your
everything to us.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
There was nowhere else you could go.
Not really.
Not really.
No, we couldn't go to the bowling alley. We couldn't go, you know.
What would happen if
restaurants.
you tried to? It was
I never really explored that.
It was just, you just don't do it.
I'll tell you how I felt when I was in high school.
Okay.
One of the gym classes would be to go to the bowling alley, learn how to bowl and that kind of thing. I knew that as an individual, I wasn't allowed to go there. My brother set pins there, and so did a lot of other people, Black people. And one of the Black jobs. I'm sorry. So when we got ready to go at a class, I was always worried that they would point me out because I was the only one in the class and say, look, you can't come in here. But they never did. And that was the case whenever we went on a field trip or anything. Mm-hmm. I was always afraid that I was going to be singled out and told to go back and sit on the bus or something like that.
Yeah. So you were constantly waiting for that.
Oh, yes.
Shoe to drop kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But as far as being in school, it was a good experience. And for the most part, people were just people. And I know that a lot of the parents have told their children that Batavia was not a special place for raising Black children. And I know one mother that recently told her son, okay, you're leaving Batavia, so don't expect things to be like it's been for the beginning of your life. Mm-hmm. Things will really change. Same way with our sons. When they were growing up, they had mostly white friends, of course. And
because they lived in Batavia. They had
right. Yeah. Well, there weren't too many Blacks around at that time.
Sure.
But there are more, I think, than they are now.
Really?
Because most of them have moved out of town and moved away.
Okay.
I always told them, you can go so far, but you can go with your friends, but just remember that you are Black and it's going to make a difference. Yeah. And I had all sons. I had to do the talk. We had to do the talk with them and just be a little bit stricter than most parents.
Is that a talk? When you reference the talk, I know that, and in reference to Black culture, that is a reference to something really specific, right? But is this different in Batavia? Does that talk? It sounds like what you're talking about is like leaving Batavia. There's a talk, but then there's also just the talk, right?
Right. Yes.
The comfort zone in Batavia is very different from the comfort zone in the outside world, because I think they're getting more systemic racism, hardcore, away from Batavia as the kids grow up. And so you have this discussion with them, say, well, you can't really, have the freedom and luxury you have here in town in an area, because when you get out, it's going to be a little more concrete. And so the thing is about it, they adjust to conditions because they learn to adjust to conditions.
They have to be aware of
this. Absolutely. Yeah, just like right now today, people are aware of the conditions because of crime.
Yeah.
We'll see the same thing when our kids, they have to be aware of the conditions.
Yeah.
And our oldest son was deeply involved with his friends, and they just two peas in a pot. But when anything like the laws or the law enforcement get involved, they really will snatch him out. See, that's what they call systemic racism that he had to confront.
Yeah.
And then so another time you're talking about Batavia. Batavia started hiring police from other areas. And so they hired some police from Cicero. They were really ironclad when it comes to racist thing like that. And we had a lot of friends, they were well-to-do. You can say middle class, nice houses and everything. And a friend of ours, he was one of the head of the boys' school. He was in a nice part of town, and his kids were outside playing. And the police came up in the driveway and asked him, say, get out this driveway. What you doing here? Because the police was not used to seeing things like that in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Or a case in point, when I designed and built my house, the police come by and ask me, say, where you work at? And I didn't want to just get downright nasty and say none of your business or something like that. So I told them, I work for the federal government, and that's all I can say.
Yeah.
And left it like that. But any other person, they wouldn't have said nothing like that.
Right.
And so this overtones of systemic racism is always exists, and it still exists now, getting more homogenized, you would say, more polished. And so it takes a little...
Polished is a good way of putting it.
Just more or less to see it.
I come from the South. I was born and raised, not born in, but raised in Alabama, Southeast Alabama. And the polish thing resonates with me because the assumption is you come north and racism is not as big of a problem. And my observation is it's different. It's not less or more of a problem.
It's more refined, you would say.
Yes.
And in some ways it's more, I don't know if this is true, but like it's more systemized. It's more formalized. Because of the segregation. There, like we live almost next door to each other where I come from. We go to school with each other. We're very integrated. But it's like even in terms of numbers of people. That was like integrated schools was a big deal for me because it changed my perspective of people that weren't like me. But coming to Illinois, that is a hard thing to find, is exposure to people who aren't like you. When did that sort of transition with the police enforcement happen with the people who came in from Cicero? I'm just trying to get a grounding in like.
Oh gosh,
it was probably during the 70s and 80s.
Okay. Yeah, around the 70s and 80s because Victor's kids were small.
Yeah. Well, no, because Connie Jr. was dating, and that was one time her boyfriend brought her home, and they were sitting in front of the house, and the police came up and wondered, what are you doing in this neighborhood? And I live here, and they say, you don't live here. So Batavia is just, it's been a great city to raise your children in.
So I'm interested in this idea of like, you leave Batavia, you got to watch out kind of thing. You got to be more careful. Maybe. Are you thinking about like even just going next door to another suburb, or are you thinking more going to a different type of location, region, whatever?
Well, it can be next door, like Geneva, for instance.
It's different in Geneva.
Very different. Because at that time, the people in Batavia have always been like white collar workers. And a lot of the women in Batavia and the men worked in Geneva. Like my mom, she cleaned for some people, cooked for them, did everything for them, raised their kids, did all kinds of stuff for more than 25 years.
Wow.
And I had an aunt that worked up in Geneva, and her daughter was from North Carolina. Her daughter came up here to be with her mom, and she couldn't go to school in Geneva. They wouldn't let her go to high school. And so she had to come and live with us and went to high school in Batavia. But
what's the technical reason for that? Like, what would they say?
We don't want you. No, I don't know if they'd say it that way, but
it's just striking to me. Like, what are you supposed to do if you're a kid in Geneva?
Well, you wouldn't be a kid in Geneva.
You just go somewhere else. That's the goal.
I don't even know. At that time, there were no blacks in Geneva. That's why Batavia was so different. I knew about 3 families that were in St. Charles, and they belonged to Logan Street and eventually moved to Batavia. But it was always people working for other people in that situation. Blacks have been in Batavia since the Chicago fire.
In fact, it was actually, if you look at the history, you go to the Historical Society, blacks have more or less started Batavia, settled Batavia all along the river here and everything. So
on this side of
the river. So
the east side of the river.
So if you look at the history, you'll find that in the Historical Society.
In fact, this whole area was black. Down this side of the road were like small shacks or houses that people used to live in. Across the street, over catty corner from the church, where the park is now, that was a little place where maybe 5 or 6 houses were over there where people lived as a group. And then across the street that way, that whole block was black, and just all around this area.
In fact, when you got right down to it, the east side was black.
And the northeast side.
Northeast side was more or less predominantly black.
This episode of Area Code Batavia is brought to you by Bulldog Plumbing. I'm not sure if you noticed, it's been raining a lot this summer, but you know who's always ready to help out in these situations. Our sponsors at Bulldog Plumbing. They're the local heroes keeping Batavia basements dry no matter how much rain we get. I've been living in Batavia for about 6 years, and we have yet to have a flooded basement. Well, except for a few times when our laundry sink overflowed. We got a sock stuck in the drain. That should be probably a cautionary tale for you. Anyway, I'm no expert, but I think the main reason we haven't had flooding from the outside is because of our sump pump. If you don't have a sump pump, you might want to consider it. Bulldog Plumbing has top-notch sump pumps and battery backups to keep your basement completely dry. Unless, of course, you have a sock in your laundry sink. I know from experience, a flooded basement is a headache you don't need. Call Bulldog Plumbing for peace of mind, knowing your home is protected. For more information or to schedule an appointment, visit their website in the show notes or give them a call at 630-313-9109.
Welcome to Settling In with Christine Clemens. On each installment of Settling In, we'll spend a couple of minutes diving deeper into what it means to make Batavia home with insights and advice from our title sponsor, local real estate expert Christine Clemens of @Properties Christie's International Real Estate. This week I had a conversation with Christine about what to do when you're feeling too overwhelmed or too overlooked to get involved in your community.
When I moved here, it was back in 2015. I did not know a soul. I knew like 2 or 3 family members that lived here that were my husband's family, but I didn't have any friends. And I had to force myself out into the community and start building these connections. It took many, many years, but then once I did, I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I just do this from the beginning? Because this is so much easier with friends.
So this is something I want to sit on because this is sort of a tension I feel all the time. There are people who can do what we're talking about, and then there are people who can't as readily do what we're talking about, and it feels lonely. Yeah. And you feel disconnected from lots of people, but definitely the community. Have you, you might not have an answer to this, but have you found ways around that for people that are in that circumstance? I think most people, when they move, face a version of this. Yeah. Because moving, it's a transition, and it often comes with other transitions. You're doing it then for a reason. Yeah. Whether it's a new job or whatever, that's an intense time, and it doesn't lend itself easily to like, now I'm going to spend some extra time volunteering or hanging out at wherever, you know. Any ideas for people in that circumstance?
Yeah, and it's going to be an uncomfortable answer because it's just an uncomfortable thing to do. You have to be incredibly brave. I think you have to put yourself out there. In my mind, I'm thinking about like the girl that goes to the homecoming dance without a date, and she's standing on the side of the gym, and her heart is just pumping out of her chest, and she's like, I don't want to be here. This is not fun for me. You know what I mean? And that's the feeling. I'll try to tell a short story about my experience with that and how hard it was for me. My first daughter was 6 months old, and I was pregnant with my second one, and my husband was working 12-hour days in Chicago. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. And so I didn't even have the wherewithal to reach out for help. I had gone to Chapel Street Church, which is in Geneva, but it's very close to Batavia. They have something called Moms Together. And I had been invited, like, maybe within the first year that I had gone here. One of my neighbors reached out and said, hey, you should come. And I went in, and my babies were so young, and they had nursery rooms that you could drop them off in. And so I dropped them off, and I walked into this room full of 100 women, and I looked around, and I immediately was like, oh my gosh, they are well-dressed. They did their hair this morning. Like, they look put together. And I was so crushed. I was like, I am not doing this well enough. And I went back out into the lobby, and I sat down and I cried, and I was like, I can't do this. This is too hard. And I ended up not coming back for many years, but then I got brave enough to walk into that room the second time and sit at a
years
table.
Later.
Yes, years later. And sit at a table full of women who, again, I was very intimidated by, because they had to appear to what looked like, from an outsider's perspective, they had their stuff together. And I, at the time, felt like I did not. But I got brave, and then I started talking about my life in a very real way. Like, hey, I'm new here.
Yeah.
I'm really like looking for friends, and I put myself out there. And those women, I swear they saved me, because they were like, I will call you, I will text you. And they today, those women that sat at that table are today my best friends. I think you just have to be brave and vulnerable, because I think you'll find out that a lot of people are craving that exact same connection. Women who were sitting at that table, who I thought had it all together, also needed the friendship.
Christine Clemens is a real estate broker with At Properties Christie's International Real Estate, one of Chicagoland's most trusted brokers, helping you buy, sell, and invest in real estate. For more information and to see how much your home is worth, text HOME to 630-797-8421 or go to christineclemens.com or click the link in the show notes. This episode of Area Code Batavia is brought to you by the Batavia Paranormal Investigation Squad. Are you one of the 2/3 of Batavians who experience paranormal activity on a regular basis? Call for a free estimate, 1-800-555-BPIS. Batavia Paranormal Investigation Squad. Spiritual cleansing for the city of energy.
Let me tell you that when my mom was from South Carolina, my dad was from Kentucky. And so during the summer, we would travel down to either Kentucky, and sometimes we'd take the train usually when we went down to South Carolina. Traveling along, we couldn't stop at hotels or anything like that.
Okay.
And that would be a long trip. So we'd always have people along the way. Sometimes we wouldn't know them, and sometimes we would, where we could stay and spend the night and then go on, because we couldn't go into restaurants or anything like that. So we'd always have to have a big basket lunch, and usually fried chicken because it doesn't spoil. And a lot of times in our house, we would have people that were coming through this area. And because a friend had said, well, you can stay here, So we'd have guests at our house and just make them feel at home and become really good friends, Right. Then I can remember going down to South Carolina. Oh my gosh. You talk about don't do this, don't do that.
You had to be
don't
really
look
careful.
them in the face, blah, 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 blah. When they get out of the street, you go on the other side. I always wondered when I was little why we never got a new car and why we'd be patching the patches on the tires. And I never figured that out until I was older. And I realized that everything was going toward the war effort.
Okay.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This would have been good because it was bringing people together.
Right. Exactly. So
this would have been right at, I might show my ignorance here. This would have been right after the Depression. Is that right?
Right. And during the Depression, I can remember my mom and dad talking about how it was during the Depression and that's when really I think the men started getting to the point where they could work in factories and things.
Okay. And
really make a little money for a change rather than my mom used to work like all week for 50 cents. My first job, I thought I was a button sewer and I made 50 cents an hour. And that was good money, let me tell you.
Actually, that reminds me of my hometown. There's a shoe factory. And my mom was telling me that it was the shoe factory that made it so Black people could work for a decent wage.
Right.
Some people's experience of that was they lost their nannies. They lost their babysitters.
Oh, yeah.
Because they could not, they could no longer afford them.
Right.
Because the wages weren't fair at that time.
Oh my gosh, no.
And then I was just like admiring the stained glass window. And then you said you made those stained glass windows. So you're I think I heard this from a friend. You're a stained glass artist?
Yeah, I design my own stained glass and fabricate my own stained glass.
Yeah. How long have you been doing that?
gosh, I don't know when I started doing it. I think I started doing it about, I say in the 90s, Ruth.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, yeah, it was about 1985.
Someplace.
Really between 1985 and 1990, I started.
Okay.
And I
stained glass was really popular along that time.
Yeah.
And he said, wow. He went and took some classes now.
Uh-huh.
And of course,
what I got interested in is a Tiffany stained glass lampshades. And I said, I'm going to make me a Tiffany stained glass lampshade. So what I did, I took in stained glass art and made my first stained glass lampshade. And boy, it was heavy too.
Yeah.
Then the pastor asked me, said, well, why don't you make some stained glass? At first I tried, it was like a paint that you paint with glass. You put a bead of cement, a bead of, look like lead on a piece of glass, and then you fill it in with some glass paint. So over a period of time, that glass paint started peeling.
Yeah.
And so flaking at the bottom, remember that?
Yeah.
And so they said, well, why don't you do the real stained glass? And that's when I started doing the real stained glass.
Yeah.
And so I made all the stained glass here. But I did also up here where you can see the black thing up there, right in the center there, was stained glass until the glass started leaking.
Okay.
And so what
the glass above the glass.
Glass above the stained glass.
That's why it's covered
I see.
down. Yeah.
But other than that, that's how I got into the stained glass.
Was it ever a job or?
No.
Oh, no. That's another thing about, like when we graduated from college or when we went out to look for a job, is most of the places around here would say called us colored back in those days. Okay. Colored need not apply, right out on the front. No, that's a job that you couldn't have.
Anyway, when I was going to school, I was working for a Caterpillar tractor company, and I was taking up engineering in the Joliet Junior College. So I learned how to read all the blueprints and everything. So I started working for International Harvester. And I was cocky then and everything. So
right.
I said, well, I'm going to get a job at Caterpillar Tractor. I didn't go in for the application. I just called them up on the phone.
Jobs were plentiful, though.
Jobs were plentiful, though. And I called them on the phone and said that I want to apply for a machinist job. And I told them my credentials, going to school and everything. They said, oh, sure, and everything. So going by the last name, just assumed I wasn't what I was. And so they said, yeah, you hired, come on in. And so when I got there, they said, oh my God, they were just shocked. Not only by the name of me going to school and reading the blueprints. So what they did, they said, okay, because I was the first Black to work at Caterpillar Tractor Company in Joliet in the machine shop. If you're Black, you went as for material handling or welding.
Okay.
But when it comes to technical things like that, no way.
This was in Joliet?
This was in Joliet, because I went to Joliet Township High School and Joliet Junior College and everything. I got the job and everything. So what they do, they try to set you up for failure. So they put me on one machine, ran the machine perfect and all this and everything. And so the inspector, he tried to more or less come up and say, well, the job is wrong that you're running. So he changed his machine settings. I said, you're wrong. So I said, I'm going to run it according to you. And told the foreman that. And I ran the job, and it was actually steering rods that works on one of the earth movers. And they were too short, and they messed up like 95 of them. And they wanted to fire me, but they found out that it was the inspector that messed up. So they took me off that machine, put me on another machine. I ended up being changed about 6 different machines in the machine shop. And I excelled on all of them in the prints and everything. So they set me up on experimental jobs and did that. And they had me as the setup man. I'm still young and cocky and everything. I put on my tube by Tremendous Tousana. And boy, they just hated it. Boy, they got so mad at me and everything. And they had a big strike. and everything. And they was laying off people left and right, and I was still working.
So there was a labor strike during that time, and you were like, not my problem.
Yep, not my problem. So the thing is about it, they laid off all these people and they kept me. And the union told them, say, if you don't get rid of him, we're going to shut this whole plant down.
Wow.
And so they eventually had to get rid of me and everything. So I said, no big thing. Went back to school. And so after I got married and everything, I got a job at the post office because the jobs that was in my field, any kind of engineering job, design job, or even artist job was just about zero to nil to get. Let's say for Nobark Studios down on Michigan Avenue, got a job there. But the thing is about it, hey, they put you in a trainee program, and you make less than a janitor in a trainee program.
Right.
And then you had all the expenses of dressing and parking and everything. So I said, forget that.
Yeah.
So I ended up applying for the post office because they had part-time jobs.
Okay.
I was going to work part-time there in the evenings, and then I was going to go to school during the day. That started out all well and good. Then I said, no, I'm not making enough money. So they said, only thing we got now is full-time. So I went full-time. And come to find out, it was guys there was teachers, engineers, surveyors, and all of them black because they couldn't get jobs. And the post office was a standard bearer for professional blacks to have employment.
Because it was a federal agency, right?
Because it was a federal agency.
Yeah.
But that's the only reason.
I'm hearing a distinction between your experience with safety in Batavia, which was largely okay, it sounds like. And then the ability to thrive, which you maybe struggled with. Is that fair?
Yeah. When I didn't finish school, got married, had children, and what have you. And when Troy was in kindergarten, I used to go and help the teacher. And she said, gee, Ruth, you should be a teacher. You're really good with the kids. And I was a den mother, all that kind of stuff. So I decided I'll go back to school. And so I started going back to school. And I first went to Wavansie and got my degree there.
You had some time in it, North.
I know, but I got my degree there. And then I transferred to Northern Illinois University. And in the meantime, I was working at, the teacher said, I'm going to see if they've got a job for you as an aide at one of the schools. I went to Gustafson School. I thought, I'm not going to get a job. And they had me go for an interview. So I went for an interview, and he says, you've got the job.
Wow.
And I said, I got the job. He said, yeah, you got the job. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, I have nothing to wear except my Cub Scout uniform. So I took the skirt, and at that time, people used to sew a lot. So I got my machine out, and I think I made a dress a day because you couldn't wear pants or anything like that. Made a dress a day until I had a few dresses, that I could change up and wear.
Yeah.
And I was hired as a teacher's aide. So I worked that job for 6 years. And then I decided I'd go back to school. So they gave me a great big going away party, and the superintendent told me, when you finish, you're going to have a job here in Batavia. And so there weren't, I don't know if there were any black teachers at that time. Janet was probably the first one. She's about 10 years younger than myself. So I got my job and started working at Gustafson School. And that was just a great time in my life to be able to teach and have my kids going to school. And
what is the first time you ever felt like you belonged in Batavia?
I think I always felt like I belonged here because my parents made me feel as if I belonged and could do and could go any place I wanted to go as far as ambition is concerned.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah. They always encouraged us. But in Batavia, there were men that fought from Batavia in the Civil War, black men. And so I used to pretty much be in charge of the Black History when they started having Black History Week. And the teachers that I taught with they were wonderful. And we would always do a play or something and invite the whole school to it. So we had great times.
What about you?
I say that when it comes to Batavia, I felt comfortable here in the sense that there was a lot of people I knew. Like you say, I knew the mayor, I knew the chief of police, I knew the inspectors, and then another thing, I ran for a city council in the 4th Ward one time. I didn't press the issue too much about running or campaigning that hard, but I eventually knew I was going to lose. But the name got popular behind me, my sons going to school. And then also I volunteer for a lot of things, the community chest. I volunteered for that for about 8 years. And then I got involved with another group, thanks to Colonel Larry Shipley. So he asked me to join the group, Home Assistance Volunteer Effort. And what we did, we helped people to stay in their home that couldn't afford things. They were up in age, retiring senior citizens in Geneva, Batavia, and St. Charles. And so we used to go to different people's houses and do different things, mostly handicap ramps, grab bars, and things that assist elderly people. And I did that for how long?
Quite a few years.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe about 10 years until COVID came. And COVID broke up everything. COVID changed a lot of things. So,
sure did.
So that's that.
What has living in Batavia taught you about yourself?
One, I haven't changed.
It taught you that you haven't changed. You're still that cocky guy.
Well, the thing is, it's not the idea of being cocky. I'm more or less disciplined myself. I have an extensive library at home. And I like to study and read. And then plus that, all my books in the library are reference books.
He never reads a novel.
Novels
I
and
wouldn't
things like
waste
this.
my time on it. And I, on the other hand.
So the thing is about it, what I didn't learn in school, and what things change, I pick up on the changes. And so, say, for example, when it comes to our house, you see all these things about, what is it?
HGTV.
HGTV. Yeah. The people that's doing things on HGTV, I was doing back in the 80s. That's what I was doing back in the 80s. Not only was I sitting down drawing up the blueprints for the house, but I actually was a general contractor and hiring people to build a house. And I got to the point I know every nickel and nail that went into the house and everything. And I was able to not only remodel my house, but I started doing drawings for contractors.
You've been in Batavia for a long time, both of you. You've seen a lot
I've been here 84 years.
She's been all that life.
And you've been here how long? How many years?
Oh, actually, I've been here since 62.
62.
Yes,
so that's pretty close.
Years.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you could kind of sum it up, maybe that's hard to do, but like, how have you seen this community of Batavia change over those years?
We've seen a lot of new people come to town, and the thing that always just tickles the devil out of us, that's it. Oh, when did you come to town?
Yeah.
So I was born here. Because they always figure, I remember that we were out at the cider mill, and you probably don't know about that because they closed it down a couple years ago.
But
during the 30s and 40s, they used to bring the cider into town, and it was like 10 cents a gallon or something like that. What were we paying when they finally
I don't know. It was
Well,
like
we had to go out west of town.
I
to
think
get
it was $1.50 a gallon, was it?
No.
Mm.
The last one we
Yeah.
quit,
Yeah.
it was like over $6 a gallon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Gee, we're getting old.
But anyway,
Yeah. We were out at the cider place one day, and this guy
turns
he
around.
comes over and I see you guys are out for the afternoon. Huh? It was a Sunday afternoon. He said, you come all the way, assuming that we came. Oh, you came all the way out from Chicago to get cider. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
And no sooner did he say that his wife turns around and said, "Oh, hi, Ruth. How are you?"
A friend of hers who knows
That's a
her
teacher. Yeah.
a teacher friend of hers and everything.
And he was so embarrassed.
This guy was embarrassed.
He just went someplace and we didn't see him anymore. But it was funny to us.
Yeah, me and the mayor was talking the other day. We met at the meat counter, Jeff, and we started talking. About a long time ago. I said, "Yeah, Jeff, when I first come out here, there was a sign on 25 because I used to come out here to see Ruth, and the sign said Batavia 2,500, and that's population.
Wow,
2,500, and that's when Van Noordstreet was the edge of town.
Right.
I have a question because we started this interview out by you saying when people leave Batavia, you prepare them. They're not going to belong as much as they do in Batavia.
Right.
My question is that because of something unique about Batavia, or is it because to you it's home?
I think it's unique about Batavia because everyone has the same experience. I know as far as kids are concerned, they have a way of just being kids and just having a good time.
Right.
And the parents have been, I think it's generations.
Yeah.
Because our family has been here.
Yeah.
Let me see, four good generations anyway, maybe 5.
Yeah.
And so have some of the people that have lived here for 5 generations or so. You really get to know people after that.
It's amazing that, just like my oldest son, Dennis, before my brother passed away, I guess Dennis was talking to him on the telephone. And he said, "Dad, your brother want to talk to you." I got the phone there. And my brother told me, "Say, well, your son talks like a white boy." And I said, "How do white people talk?" He said, "That's how he sounds."
Yeah.
Because he was raised there. It's just like if you raised in the South and you got the Southern dialect in there, which
I have a little bit of it. I say y'all every now and then. I do get comments. I get comments like, where are you? I know you're not. I get that same. I know you're not from around there, but it's because of my accent.
My husband and myself have noticed that people from the South anymore don't have the Southern drawl that they used to have.
I tried to lose it over time.
Did you really?
I kind of regret that a little bit, but it's something I sort of trained myself not to do.
Why is that?
At the time, I thought, I don't know. I think I just thought it was like, I didn't love growing up there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now I feel differently, but I did at the time. I didn't love the connotations of the South. I didn't love like hunting or fishing all that much. I wasn't an outdoor guy.
Yeah.
So I struggled feeling like I belonged in that place.
I don't know. I always figured that Southern drawl is a connotation that, just Northerns look at it and say, well, he doesn't know anything.
Yeah,
he's more or less uneducated. He's country bumpkin or something like that. And it's a downplay on people.
Right.
With this strong Southern drawl and everything.
And I think I'd internalized that a little bit for whatever reason.
And I guess they try to keep me at arm's length. Well, it's just like a class system. You're in a different class. That's what it is.
So how did your son end up sounding quote unquote white? How did that happen?
Because that's all he was.
Those were his friends.
Yeah, all his friends and everything. Yeah. That just comes upon you.
But then too, you find what we call coding.
Code switch kind of
thing.
Yeah, you heard of that.
with blacks, you speak one way. When you're with whites, you speak another way.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is appropriate to ask, but I'm just curious. Are you talking a different way right now?
No, not really.
This is how you
Really?
talk
No.
in normal.
This is
the way we
normal. Yeah.
normally talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
But it may be if we were in a group of people, like if Madison came in here. Or something.
Well, I mean, that is like one of the reasons I have these conversations in the place,
Right.
you know,
right.
in a place that's comfortable and that people exist in
Right.
typically, because I want people to be at ease
Yeah.
to do that. So,
Well, just like you say, when you go to a gathering and everything, and it's all white and everything. I was kidding Ruth because most of her friends here in town are white, and I go around just like what you just had at the.
Oh, the golf outing.
No, not the golf outing.
Our reunion.
Our reunion and everything.
67th.
And even though I know quite a bit of them, they know me and say, "Hey, Ed, how's it going?" Talk to them, and just like it's normal to me, I don't want to go there because I don't know anybody. She knows everybody, and she likes to socialize. And so to try to get away from it and everything, I told her, "Gosh, I have to practice up on my coding."
you got to work on
the
alternate voice. That's funny. To you, okay, last question. To you, what does it mean? What does it mean to belong in Batavia?
I love it. I don't think I could ever live any place else except Batavia.
Really?
I know people. They know me. I feel comfortable here. I know Ed at one time. He wanted to go to school, but he wanted to go in, was it Washington?
Yeah, I wanted to go to Seattle, Washington. University of Washington. I wanted to go there and everything. But circumstances.
Yeah, it was shut down.
Shut down quick.
But I just love it. I feel comfortable. I like the people. I like the area.
Yeah.
Even though it's a sheltered area, I think.
Meaning
I think
what?
people just sheltered. It's not like the rest of the world. At least to me, it's not. With friends and everything.
So you're saying it's shelter from what?
People are authentic, in a sense.
Yeah, I think they are.
Yeah, people are authentic. They just, kid and clown. We meet people in the street, they shake hands and everything. See, number one, I was raised in a small town, suburban town.
Okay.
I went to suburban school and everything. And then when I come here to Batavia, it was either more so a comfort zone because Batavia was a smaller town and everybody knew everybody.
Yeah.
It's just like Mayberry, And so that's the one comfort thing I really like about Batavia.
What role has Logan Street Missionary Baptist Church played in your feeling of belonging in Batavia?
Oh my gosh, it's just Logan Street Baptist Church in Batavia is looked up as it's like a centerpiece. They got a historical market out there.
Yeah.
And it's something that Batavia as a community pride themselves on. Well, we got a black church here that's been here 104 years.
Okay. Yeah.
We are really cosmopolitan. It's just the idea that we are the community that all communities want to be. And that's the idea that they try to more or less put out to Illinois itself.
And how true is that?
How true is it? It's very true in a lot of sense that you're accepted a lot of times on what you know. And more or less, if you got any kind of marketing skills, Batavia, if you black, it's not like it used to be in the sense that even though you have marketing skills and craftsmanship and everything, that they say, push you to the side.
Yeah.
It's more or less, hey, won't you join this committee? Won't you be a part of this? They try to pull you into different things.
Yeah.
It's just like we have every year, the Brotherhood Banquet. And the Brotherhood Banquet is representatives from each church. We have a big banquet of all the churches of the men.
Okay.
And all the men get together and everything. And They have a speaker and everything. And each church is asked to more or less have the program. In other words, Logan Street had it one year whereby we had a speaker and everything. Another church have it, but we only have it at 2 facilities. That's Emmanuel and Holy Cross because they had a space for it. We covered it all too.
Always loved our church.
Yeah.
This is where all the activities, when we were young, this is where everything took place.
You said it was the epicenter for Black people.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. And,
and has it remained that over time?
I think so. Not as much as it used to be now.
Not as much as it used to be.
Kids are involved in so many things, and so many things happen on Sundays.
Balance it out like this. The less community and social activities they have for Blacks, the more they're involved in churches. But being as nowadays there's more community activities, there are more social activities that's acceptable in the whole community, a lot of people are more or less drifting away from the church.
From the church in
They're
general.
still at the church.
They're still at the church.
They don't neglect the activities that the children have on the weekends.
Well, just like sports.
Yeah.
Hey,
They never, everything was closed on Sunday when we were kids.
Yeah, just about roll up the sidewalks.
Is that development good or bad for people in general, but also for this community?
Well, only thing about it, when you speak about the moral aspects, it's bad. But when you speak about the social aspects, it's good.
Okay.
So in other words,
it's good for this community.
It's good for the community social-wise, but moral-wise, it's not good for the community because they do not have that strong sense of moral posture. Just like in the schools nowadays, what do teachers teach about how you treat your neighbor? I went over to Batavia Middle School, and they got all kinds of signs everywhere.
It's different than even my experience.
All kinds of signs. Good Lord, what is this? All these signs
that are like, be kind,
be kind,
everyone.
Smile and all this stuff like this. All that stuff should be taught at home. The parenting skills have down from an A to a B.
Because moms used to be at home.
That's true.
Most moms.
And the more women work, more women work, I say like this, the less they can have the influence in their home.
Yeah.
If the babysitter don't teach them, they don't learn it until they get in school.
Yeah. Ruth, I'm curious about your perspective. Do you think there's something lost in not having as much of a community here on Sunday? Not having as large of a community, as complete of a community here.
Especially since COVID. Yes, I do. I don't think the unity is there as much as it used to be. People are satisfied not doing, hanging around the outskirts. But there are people that come into the community and want to get really involved in the church community, That's encouraging because our congregation has quite a few new people, new to town.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to have them,
Yeah. What attracts them to this particular community?
I think of friendliness.
I think so.
Of the church. Friendliness of the church.
So.
Yeah.
Because we embrace everyone that comes to that door.
That's right.
And encourage them to come back again.
Yeah.
So it's the idea about it is friendliness, embracing, and acceptance.
Yeah.
And that means a lot because a lot of people, they feel they outcast, you would say. And if somebody come and shake their hand and embrace them, it gives them comfort. So we find a lot of people coming back to here because of that.
Yeah.
Right.
And the music too.
The music helps. Yeah, it's good music.
The music helps.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks for listening to Area Code Batavia. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. If you enjoyed this podcast, you should absolutely subscribe to the newsletter. Not only will we let you know when a new episode is out, but you'll also receive a weekly list of 5 concrete ways to belong in Batavia. Just click the link in the show notes. Most importantly, if you know someone who would love to hear this podcast, please share it with them. Word of mouth is the best way to grow our community and help more people feel like they belong in Batavia, Illinois. Area Code Batavia is produced by Area Code Audio. It's hosted and produced by me, Richard Clark, with additional production help from Jennifer Clark. Edited and mixed by Matt Linder.